It's great to be here, friends, and hello to everyone again. And my topic today is community development in the system of formal and non-formal education in Ukraine. And I am sure that for most of us, the community development as academic discipline or part of training, education is something very common and very good known. But in Ukraine, the situation is not the same. Mostly community development is not widely spread here as a training activity. And when I only started working with inclusive practices, I thought community development, some practices, what is this? Maybe I know, maybe I didn't know that. And now I want to share my experience in Ukraine, and I prepared a small report to you and want to share my ideas. Maybe you will help me to understand the way how to make the community development as a widely spread practice, because it's really great practice and really great discipline and way of teaching and learning and understanding. I will try to do my best in 10 minutes to explain the problem. And the main situation is that community development is mostly known only some parts of community development, the social practices. They are part of methodology in for example, inclusive making decision, or for example, in social work, or some psychological practices, but there are no academic courses in Ukraine presenting community development as a social practice at all. Even Wikipedia has no article community development in the Ukrainian language. Yes, we have something in Russian, but I think that if we are talking about independent Ukrainian reality, mostly we should create the content in Ukrainian language. And that's why it's a small feature to show that the problem is existing. And decentralization as a new governing approach that is now is leading approach Ukraine, and the state policy in Ukraine delegates more power to local communities. And that's why at this stage, the community development is very important, because we can talk about the way how we can empower citizens to make some decision, to create good practices for them, to share good practices with other communities, and all these practices would be possible only if we spread the main of community development in Ukraine and share it with everyone. And that's why it's so much important to implement a community development approach and practices into all levels of academic and non-formal education in Ukraine. Yes, the best way is to start from the lowest educational level, but we know that education is a process that takes a long time to be finished and to see some results of that. That's why we should use the community development practices even on this stage on every possible level, and adopt some Ukrainian rules and other things in order to help these practices to be as much effective as it possible. And here and now changes will come after some time if we explain to everyone why it is so much important. So what is the optimal road? What is the best way to share these practices and to make the community development practices as the leading social practices and for local communities? I think that the best way, first of all, is to use the existing heritage. Yes, so we need to translate the best scientific and practically oriented researches and guides about community development into Ukrainian language. And this is the first necessary step. And in order to share all this knowledge with the widest audience, we should create internet resource and website on community development related topics in the Ukrainian language. Yes, so it's like to make a bridge between Ukrainian and world heritage, and to help us to look closer to the best practices. And this internet resource will help to share the best community development practices and some other ideas. And we expect that active citizens, public organization, and educators from all over the Ukraine will take this knowledge and create some massive open online courses or other non-formal training in order to encourage other citizens to use this practice and to show how it works. In order to empower NGO, local governments, educational institutions, and active citizens to implement community development practices as social development tools, we should take conferences, trainings, some competition, and other things. And the best way for that is to spread the best practices and theoretical knowledge together at the same time simultaneously in order to help not only to see some tips but also to help to understand the strategy and to build our own strategy in educational fields. So what's the tools we can use for that? First of all, it's massive open educational courses of all types and shapes. It's community development as an academic discipline for most social-oriented professions and specialties. It's international training programs. We should use the best practices from all over the globe, and professional excellence training courses online and offline because due to Ukrainian law, every educators should have about 150 hours of non-formal training and some additional training during every year, and every educator should have some documents in order to prove that he or she has some trainings for that. And international workshops, best practices sharing, conferences and seminars, websites and blogs on community development topics, and lots of other things that can help us to spread the ideas. And together with NGOs where I work and the University of Ukraine, where I am taking the position of a professor now, we decided to run such online program, Community Development and Sustainable Development Goals. And now you can see some tips and some features of this program. I think it should be very short online training, about 30 hours, and at least 30 hours should be conducted in the format of webinars. Every webinar should be about 2 hours, not more. And After these webinars, we will create a small brief online course with videos and some tests and some presentation materials and other resources in order to spread it among educators, students, and all the beneficiaries in Ukraine free of cost. And also we want to make a teaching excellence program for higher education institution educators and administrative staff from all regions of Ukraine in order to encourage them to use these practices and to spread it and to share it among their professionals in their institution. And what's the possible topics of webinars? We think it will be the best way for first steps. First, to introduce the community development as a practice, history and basic principles of the approach. Secondly, we want to share the best practices from Europe and America, where they try to teach community development. And also it's necessary to understand how we can use development of communities in the Ukrainian legal field. And next, it's community development and work with groups in psychology, because it's important too, and it's a wide zone and area for research. And community development and sustainable development goals as a final webinars to understand how we can use the community development to get the main goals, because now Ukrainian government has different events. It's like Ukraine 2030, and they are spreading sustainable goals of United Nations. And we are talking more about this side of problems, and that's why we want to share it. So I try to be as brief as it possible. If you have any questions, it will be great. I can understand if I am right or not, maybe some tips, maybe some practices. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Svitlana. It was very interesting.
Thank you, dear friends. So I think that my contacts are in the program, and I will be very thankful if you share any best practices or something like that, because the main idea of conferences and workshops is to exchange best practices. And the final, what I want to say is you're welcome in Ukraine. Ukraine is very beautiful. Yes, Kenya is really exciting. Yes, but Ukraine is beautiful too. So welcome to Ukraine.